I hung up the phone and then I went over where my commander was taking a little rest break at a cot we had down there. I wake him up and start to tell him about the phone calls, but before I could tell him anything, really, the missiles started shutting down.
What was the first sign that something was off that day?
Well, I was on duty. In other words, my commander was taking a rest break. There were two of us in the capsule. The capsule was about 60 feet underground. We had six guards upstairs, and it was just me and my commander downstairs. We were locked in for 24 hours, couldn't get out because of obviously, we were protecting nuclear weapons. So, sometime in the evening, I get a call from my security guard that's saying, Sir, we've been seeing strange lights in the sky. They're flying very fast, stopping in midair, reversing course, making 90-degree turns. Um, if this sounds familiar, it's the kind of thing that's been reported by pilots recently, um, and it's one of the things that I think Lieutenant Commander Fravor pointed to, the operational capability of these things. Uh,
Hmm.
at any rate, my guard told me all that, and 67, and he said, they're not airplanes. They're not airplanes. There's no engine noise. Uh, they're just lights flying overhead. I kind of dismissed it because, uh, well, we had uh, reports in the local newspaper about UFOs by the citizens reporting it to the paper, and I just kind of laughed it off. I didn't take it seriously. I kind of hung up the phone on him. And then he calls back about 5 minutes later. This time he's very serious. He's shouting into the phone, just kind of not making any sense. I try to calm him down. Finally, he tells me there's a orange red light, very large, hovering just above the front gate of the facility, and wanted me to tell him what to do next. He had all the guards out there with their weapons drawn, and they were all looking at this pulsating orange red light. And I took him very seriously now because, like I said, he was very frightened. Uh, and this was something immediate, ongoing. And I thought we were under some sort of an attack. It felt like it. So I said, make sure nothing enters the fenced area. Use whatever force you need to. And then he hung up. He said one of the guards got injured, not from the UFO, by the way.
Hmm.
But anyway, went over to tell my commander about these calls, and then all of a sudden, we're getting bells and whistles going off with our status board, and we all know we knew what that meant, and that was the missiles were shutting off, or shutting down. And sure enough, within seconds, all 10 of our Minuteman I missiles were offline, no go, could not be used. They were all disabled while the subject was still up there.
Yeah, I remember distinctly reading the about the two calls, and it seems like the first call from the flight security controller, it was a little bit more casual, and then you describe him screaming and yelling on the phone the second call much more frantically. There's
No,
one hovering outside the front gate. It's glowing red. One of the guys is injured, not from the UFO. But when you first hear the guard's voice on the second call, what was going through your mind in that moment? Was it more like the technicalities of doing your job? Were you thinking about the possibilities of what could be outside? What was running through your mind and your body after the second call?
well, I tuned into his fear. He was very frightened. So the first thing I thought of, we were under some sort of an attack. Um, now, I know that sounds a little wild, but it's just the way he presented himself. So I took him very, very seriously. And, In fact, as soon as we hung up, I turned to look at my status board just to see how our missiles were doing, and everything was green. And but when I went over to talk to my commander, I hadn't said a word to him yet. I got to tell him about the phone calls, but then all the missiles started going down.
Yeah, I mean,
So
if I was in that situation, I mean, I can't even begin to imagine what would be running through my head, but the possibility of an attack seems pretty likely in that scenario if you're at a base with weapons that are designed to cause severe harm and destruction at multiple points around the globe, and all of a sudden they start shutting down without your control. I would be thinking that some outside force or entity or country, whoever it was disabling weapons because maybe there were weapons on the way or something, or they were plotting an attack in the coming moments against the United States. That would be what would run through my mind, I imagine.
yeah, sure, yeah. It's been so long. I don't remember exactly what was on my mind. Although
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I do know it was serious. It was serious.
Yeah. And then.
So next thing it happened.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. I didn't mean to.
Next thing it happened. We both jumped up and went through our checklist procedures. He had to call back to the command post, which is back at Great Falls. And we were about 100 miles away near a little town called Roy, Montana. And there were also a couple of indicators, lights on the panel that showed possible incursion into a couple of the launch facilities. The launch facilities where the missiles are actually located, about a mile or so away from this central hub. So I had to call back upstairs. I asked about the object, and the FSC said it just flown off. Then I ordered them to send guards out to these two sites where we had incursion lights. And when they went out there, they saw the UFOs again over those two sites. We ordered them back. We said, don't go any further, just come back. And we're reporting this. On the way back, they lost radio contact, which is fairly common around UFO cases. We lose radio. And then when my commander was finished with his call, he turns to me and said the same thing happened on another flight. I do remember those words, but what he failed to tell me was it happened a week earlier. So for a long time, I thought, that the same thing happened that night, but it was 8 days earlier, and that was the Echo flight shutdown. Happened under similar circumstances to ours. That was on March 16th. In command of that situation was Walt Fiegel, Colonel, retired now. I've been in contact with him. I've gotten his testimony on audio. If people are interested in the details of these two incidents, they can go to my website. It's spiralgalaxy.org, spiralgalaxy, all one word, .org. And I've got a lot of my evidence there in the form of documents that were received under FOIA, and also audio tapes and videotapes, a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and that I'll link that for people listening and watching in the podcast description as well, as well as Bob's writings, the two books that we're gonna mention in this podcast. But so did you ever manage to get eyes on the craft either directly or indirectly or anyway, or were you in the command center the whole time?
I was in an underground control center, 60 feet underground. We were locked in with a huge door. we had specific procedures to go through before we could open that door. Because obviously, if we had let the bad guys in, they would have access to nuclear weapons. So, yeah, we were always locked in for 24 hours until relieved by another crew.
Oh
So, no, I
wow,
didn't see the object. Uh, yeah.
locked in for 24 hours. That's pretty intense. But it makes sense if you're dealing with a nuclear weapons facility. It's not you're not playing with Nerf guns. So when the guys are the flight security controllers are saying that there's one hovering outside the front gate, it's glowing red, and all of a sudden the alarms start going off, you wake up your lieutenant commander. Do the lights on the console panel or wherever you see the weapon starting to shut off or deactivate, does that happen immediately after you find out about the UFOs? Is there a gap between that, or what was kind of your feeling of the
It was
passing
just,
of time?
oh, just a matter of a minute or two.
Okay.
Uh, like I said, I hung up the phone and then I went over where my commander was taking a little rest break at a cot we had down there. I wake him up and start to tell him about the phone calls, but before I could tell him anything, really, the missiles started shutting down. So we got a lot of noise in the capsule when that happens. We got horns and
Yeah.
whistles and the whole shebang.
So I'm just curious, is the on the panel, it sounds like there are lights representing each missile on the control panel, and kind of like a series of.
Yes.
Did you see
Yeah,
those? Did you see those all go off at once, or was it a gradual? One shut off, then another. How did that happen as you were looking at it?
it happened very quickly. Yeah. Each of the missiles had an individual column of lights, uh, and the two lights at the top, one says, I think, alert status, and the other one is, I forgot what it had on there, but it's the status that says the missile is unlaunchable. So uh, it turned from green to red, just bing, 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 just
Hmm.
rapidly. So we lost all of them within seconds.